video is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Well, I told you about this back in kind of early October, when Bob Corker gave that interview to the New York Times, and when Corker said, you know, he's worried about the chaos and the recklessness that Donald Trump is creating with his tweets, with his approach. He concerns me, Bob Corker told the New York Times. He could put the U.S. on the path to World War III, said Bob Corker. And then this was amplified on CNN by various CNN hosts, where Michael Merconish said that, look, Bob Corker, he's one of the most powerful men in the U.S. Senate. He was planting seeds to call into question President Trump's fitness for office. I'm thinking the 25th Amendment, Section 4, which speaks to a president who is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, Merconish told CNN. So it was Bob Corker who started this questioning that becomes, in the media landscape, a drumbeat of saying that this president can't discharge his duties. Look at, he's tweeting videos of Muslims smashing the Virgin Mary, and he's tweeting things about NBC's sexual harassment issue. And you know what I say to all this? Nice try. Nice try. The media do not want to spend more than like 24 hours talking about Matt Lauer. They definitely don't want to talk about the fact that the overwhelming majority of the sexual predators who have been revealed in television, radio, business, everybody's now knowing that most of the predators happen to be big liberals. That doesn't mean there aren't some Republicans on these lists. And last night, Mitch McConnell and Marco Rubio essentially both said that there are Senate personnel who are on this list, and I'll get to that later, which shocked me. Elisa, didn't you think this was mostly a house slush fund? That's how it's been described.
Well, that's been the reporting up till now, but I mean, really, last night it seemed unclear whether or not...
Yeah, there are senators on the list. I mean... But then one of my Breitbart friends sent me over a piece saying, well, no, we've always known it was all of Congress. But I don't think so. I mean, I know Breitbart did a piece on this, and I'm glad they sent it over to me. But to me, and James and I were talking about this earlier, I always thought it was the House. I kept hearing the House because it was the House. What committee in the House? It was some kind of, it was mostly people in the House. That's what I thought. But then it's true that Grassley in 1995, he did set up this process. But I guess for some reason, because a lot of people from the House have been discussing this, and McConnell really hadn't gone into any great detail about this until last night. So we'll untangle all of that. But again, it was initially set up by Senator Grassley. However, the focus had been on the House side, I guess because of Conyers and so forth. But we'll learn more about that and talk about it as the show goes on. But the reason I bring it up now is because they don't want to talk about all the good news in the economy. 3.3% GDP. Oh, okay. Now we're rounding the GDP up. Under Obama, we usually had to round it down. In other words, they misstated or to quote George Bush, misunderestimated the GDP from quarter to quarter. So they usually went down. Now this case is going up 3.3%. Of course, housing starts, lower claims for unemployment, consumer confidence up, best Christmas we've had in years as far as retail sales, internet sales, obviously the stock market up. You can't talk about that. Because you can't give Trump any credit for that. And in the Matt Lauer thing, I promise you, this is the beginning of a lot more. I hinted at this last night on the Ingraham angle. Jeff Zucker is the president of CNN. Jeff Zucker and Matt Lauer were best buddies. And it's when I used to be at MSNBC. And the only thing we heard from Jeff Zucker yesterday was through a spokesperson who said no complaints were filed against Matt Lauer during Mr. Zucker's tenure at NBC. Now, this is like saying I didn't know anything about Harvey Weinstein, the kind of guy he was. Doesn't mean that Matt Lauer wasn't a fun person to hang out with in other ways, but the idea that these, all these men are kind of operating in their cocoons and don't know about how each of them perhaps could have behaved, I don't buy it. I don't buy any of that. In CNN is Trump calls it fake news. It has been hounding conservatives unfairly in a most biased manner and did so the entire 2016 election cycle. And now they're on the precipice of perhaps we'll learn more about Mr. Zucker and Mr. Lauer. And they don't want to go anywhere near this. I mean, they had to talk about it yesterday, but they want to go back to Trump's insane. You know what I think is insane? Taking pictures of your private parts and then sending them to a 20-year-old. That's what I think is insane. I think it's insane to think that anyone is going to believe you when you say, oh, this is shocking. I could never have thought this about Matt Lauer. I didn't know it. I mean, if you're a hound dog, you're a hound dog. Everybody knows it. Give me a break. The Inquirer has been all over Matt Lauer for a decade plus. Inquirer, the Star, and Inquirer, same publication that broke the John Edwards story. So let's not pretend that everybody's all pure as the driven snow on this. And how many of you think Jeff Zucker, best buddies with Matt Lauer? Look up how many years they were together on the Today Show. So Jeff Zucker was the executive producer of the Today Show, was the boy wonder at NBC. Then he became head of NBC News. How long was that stretch? Okay, and let's pull up some of those photos of Lauer and Zucker hanging out together. But they have to talk about Trump's mental fitness for office. They have to call that into question because otherwise people are going to start looking under their bed.
You have somebody inside the White House that the New York Daily News says is mentally unfit, that people close to him say is mentally unfit, that people close to him during the campaign told me had early stages of dementia. Now, listen, you can get mad at me if you want to.
You can say that's not okay to say. But
it is okay to say when are we supposed to say this? After the first nuclear missile goes?
Get out of
is that when it's proper to bring this up in polite society?
I don't think you have to worry about polite society, Joe, when you're repeating supposedly what everyone in the campaign knew. Okay, first of all, I know most of the people in the campaign. I have never heard anything like this.
When did journalism become about like whispers?
Yeah, whispers and rumors. That's all they have.
Can't confirm, no source, but I heard.
Yeah, no, I heard, but no, we're never going to give a name of a source. Never going to. So again, if they want to play that game, okay, Joe, I want to know exactly what you knew about Matt Lauer. Exactly. You knew nothing? Never? Nothing? Anything in MSNBC? Other than the fact that they were playing pretend on set? He and Mika were playing pretend for however long they were playing pretend about their own relationship? Again, I don't care what the relationship is, but don't pretend like you're like this big truth teller when the entire audience was misled for how long? I mean, come on. I mean, again, so I don't care. They want to be together, good for them. I wish them a wonderful life together, and I'm sure they're nice people, but don't we know what's going on here. You hate Trump because Trump's called you out. You can't stand Trump. You can't stand the fact that you were wrong about the election, horribly wrong. You up until the minute before the votes started coming in, you were laughing that he was going to get his hat handed to him in the election. And the male ego is operating on so many different levels here. The super male ego, either on the sexual harassment front, where it's real sexual harassment, it's the ego of these men in high positions of power who think they're never going to get caught. We saw it with Clinton. Now we see it with Lauer. We saw it with Franken. So many others. They never think they're going to get caught, and they need the constant adulation. And when they're wrong, they don't want to. They have to destroy the person who said they were wrong, and that is what they're doing with Trump. And I mean, I've asked people who are in regular meetings, including, of course, Mitch McConnell last night. We'll play the other question I asked him. But I've asked people who are involved in the most complex transactions, governmental transactions, in the Treasury Department and on the trade front. And they said not only is he mentally sharp, we come in and we have to be uber prepared because we get peppered with so many questions from him. Timing, content. Did you cross the T on this? Do you dot the I on this? Where are we going on this? Why is this taking so long? How is this going to affect our relationship with the Canadians? Like, he is on this stuff, but I've grilled people about this. And does Trump tweet on things sometimes he shouldn't? Yes, he does. But that's just who he is. That's what he does. And do you notice, by the way, that no one wants to talk about whether there's any truth to any of these Muslim videos? Is there truth to any of them? So do we think that this never happens to Christians at the hands of Islamic jihadists? Well, first of all, it does. Again, if I were the president, I wouldn't retweet people who we don't know anything about. I think that's just a mistake. That's a mistake. Shouldn't do that. But jumping from that to the man is going to take us into nuclear holocaust, and we need to use the 25th Amendment, Section 4, to remove him from office. That way we don't have to admit that conservative populism actually works on an economic front, on a trade front, and yes, on a foreign policy front, as China's now dancing to a different tune. Now, Mitch McConnell, I want your reaction to the Mitch McConnell interview last night on the Ingraham angle. I had so many people email me after the interview had wrapped and said, I don't think I've ever liked Mitch McConnell more than I liked him after this interview. Like, there are a couple things that people don't agree with, but just the conservative stalwarts out there, after hearing him on a bunch of topics, and we covered a lot in that interview. They're like, wow. It's interesting, because when you're in the moment, you don't kind of think about it. But this is where I pressed him on the mental fitness question.
Two different cable networks, MSNBC and CNN, at different points in the day, were raising serious questions. I mean, these are big league reporters about the mental state of President Trump, saying that he looks like he has early onset dementia. He's unstable, he's destructive, he's imbalanced at a time where we could very well be facing a war with North Korea. You've had a lot of interactions with the president. Tell us about what you view his intellectual, mental capacity.
Those accusations are absolutely outrageous. I mean, I speak to the president on a virtually daily basis, and I'm involved with him all the time on all these issues. And that kind of accusation is totally baseless and outrageous.
I mean, definitive from Senator McConnell. And I bet the president was very happy to hear that last night. Why do you think they're doing this? And do you think certain Republicans are helping? Joe Scarborough's not a Republican. It's basically Morning Mika now. So he's just a liberal too. So, but what do you think about that? Are Republicans helping with this narrative as the economy is poised to take off after this tax reform gets through? We have a completely different and more transparent, open relationship with our trading partners. And yeah, we do have a very dangerous situation with North Korea. I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but we could be at war with North Korea. But it's not like Donald Trump is the one who got us to this place. We had Obama, we had Clinton, we had Bush. All of them were supposedly doing all this stuff to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon. They had sanctions. They supposedly worked with China. None of it worked. So they left it in the lap of Donald Trump. He's tried more sanctions. He told China, you want to do business with us? You better help us. The Chinese deployed or sent a high-level envoy to North Korea and said, this is insane. Don't keep doing this. And yet the tension keeps getting ratcheted up and ratcheted up. Is this Donald Trump's fault? He's 10 and a half months into this deal. So I think that you have to look several levels beneath what's happening on the surface to really see what's going on with this drumbeat in the media today, as the media itself has been exposed for how they treat women, their rank bias, and their coordination with the Democrats during the election. as we saw with the giving the questions to, the DNC getting the debate questions. 855-40-LAURA. I want to hear from all of you on this. We have a great show lined up tonight on the Ingraham angle. LifeSet is loaded with phenomenal content. Luis Gutierrez in 2020. You want to read this piece. LifeSet.com. Don't go away. After emerging from a maple glazed turkey daze, the last thing anyone wants is to get bogged down in chaotic Black Friday shopping lines. Forget about it. Luckily, SelectBlinds.com makes it easy to score huge savings on blinds, all from the comfort of your hibernation den. Take advantage of Select Blinds' biggest Black Friday sale ever with unbeatable deals on high-quality custom blinds, shades, and shutters. You're not going to see these discounts again all year long. Wow, Select Blinds takes the guesswork out of ordering blinds online by offering high-quality blinds for an unbelievable price. Select Blinds has the most online reviews and 5-star ratings on the planet. That's more than 1 million satisfied customers. SelectBlinds.com really is the smart way to get blinds. You shop the Black Friday sale today at SelectBlinds.com for amazing deals on blinds, shades, and shutters like the kind I have above my garage. You're going to love these. Remember, mention the show, Laura Ingraham Show at checkout using the drop-down menu. Select Blinds, simple, smart, custom. That was Heidi Prisbilla from NBC. It's kind of like Sinatra's My Way. Now the end is near. Face the final curtain. It's always the end. The Democrats always say, well, conservatism, R.I.P. Remember they said that in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected? They said it in 2012 when Mitt Romney lost. They said it all throughout the 2016 election cycle. You stand with Donald Trump and your career is over. Hannity's the #1 show in cable news, by the way. It's always the end. Heidi Prisbilla, I mean, when is the last time she was right on anything? You don't even know if she is, but it's always Trump's about to expire politically. And if you're connected with Trump, you're going to expire politically. And last time I checked, we haven't had too many Republicans win Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Florida and win the presidential election. But in fact, of course, that's what he did. Oh, these journalists don't like the magnifying glass on them now. That's what's happening. Is that now we're on to them. Tucker Carlson up next. Then you try to actually get the date or destination that you really want, and you find out, oh, no, it's unavailable. Sorry, you're out of luck. Well, I've done my research, and if you really want to get out of that timeshare contract that you've been stuck in, call my friends at Resort Release. Now, ResortRelease.com helps timeshare owners legally and permanently end these contracts and end all future payment. And it's guaranteed. By the way, they have an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, which I love. And you go to ResortRelease.com or call them at 855-66 Laura, and Resort Release gives every customer a 100% money-back guarantee. So then you legally and forever get to walk away. And for some reason, if you don't get out of the contract, guess what? You don't pay a dime, period. So what do you have to lose? 2018's maintenance fees are due any day now. So don't get yourself stuck. Get unstuck with ResortRelease.com or call them at 855-66-LAURA to see if you qualify. That's 855-66-LAURA. I feel like I lose brain cells when I'm hearing these sound bites. We're getting what is she talking about? You either knew about it or you didn't. We're desensitized. You know what happens is a lot of people, they're making a lot of money and they don't want to rock the boat. Why should they? They feel like I'm doing well. I have a house out in the Hamptons and I'm driving a Mercedes 560 SL and everything's good. But don't make yourself out to be, oh, this is a moment. This is our moment. You know what the media really what's really going on here is they don't like a little taste of their own medicine. What they've been doing, and oftentimes unfairly to people in the way they cover stories or don't cover certain stories, now the microscope is on them. Their motivations, their accuracy in reporting, which obviously was woefully lacking in the 2016 election cycle and continues today. Of course, as I said, their overall bias. They don't like any of this exposed. And the idea that they like the King Matt Lauer exposed, and that's a double entendre there. Of course, they don't want to talk about it. They'd rather talk about how Trump's mentally unfit, he has dementia, and we're going to have nuclear war all because of Donald Trump. That's what they've moved on to that pretty fast after Matt Lauer. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, Tucker Carlson, who hosts the wildly popular #1 show in his time slot, of course, for the month of November. And it's just so great to have him as a colleague and to join this great lineup at Fox. And he joins us now. Hey, Tucker.
Hey, Hey, Laura, how you doing?
I'm good. We did pretty well in November, thank God. I mean, we all won our time slots, so that's good.
Thank God. Amen.
Yeah, I mean, not that we live and breathe on the ratings every day, but let's face it, the ratings aren't nothing, and you've done really well. So congratulations on that, my friend.
Thank you.
Let's talk about where we are in this this wild story. I watched you the other night when you were talking about your own experience in being falsely accused by someone, which was riveting television, by the way. But obviously, with someone like a Lauer, who's this giant in the media industry, he's gone. Rose is gone. O'Reilly's gone. What of this? And what about all these these women who say, well, they heard rumors, but they decided not to say anything, and now's our moment, and it's I am woman, hear me roar. Where are we here?
I mean, a lot of it's real, some of it's not. It's all frustrating and it's dishonesty. Most people accused are guilty. I mean, as all of us know, but what's worth keeping in mind is that, there are some who are not guilty or whose circumstances are much more complicated than portrayed, and that's why due process is so important. Obviously, you know better than I as a former Supreme Court clerk, but I mean, there's a reason that, the Sixth Amendment gives you the right to face your accuser, for example, or that you're presumed innocent before proved otherwise. I mean, these safeguards reflect what we know about human nature, which is, people are generally honest, but they're not always honest. And when there's a lot at stake, you better be sure before you punish someone that he's actually guilty. And I guess for me, the measure is, are innocent people afraid right now? That's always the measure of whether or not something's a witch hunt. By the way, I'm always happy when abusers of power are brought to account, always, whether it's abusers of sexual power or economic power or any kind of power. When you abuse it, I think you should be punished. But when do we cross the line from justice into something French Revolution-y? And we know when people start, worrying about being punished for things they didn't do, and I'm concerned that we're approaching that line. So I hope we can back off a little bit. As for, Mika going on about that, I mean, please. I mean, a lot of the truth, you've been in the media a long time, is that the kind of people who go into the media are a self-selected group. Yeah. They're showbiz people. They're extroverts. They're narcissists. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them are. And it's a weird dynamic where you have, it's a business mostly populated by women and younger women, and then you have older men as hosts, and they're already totally self-involved, and some of them aren't great people. And so it is kind of a recipe for bad behavior. It's just the structure of it. It's always been that way. I'm against it, by the way. I've got 3 daughters. I mean, I hate that stuff, but this is not a new thing. It's just kind of what, it's been that way for a while.
And, of course, the same thing in Hollywood with the power that producers and directors have, casting calls with, you got to do a little extra something. I mean, none of this is surprising. I think what always seems to concern me in all of this is, of course, the victims, but also changing the nature of a workplace in a way it's like a boomerang effect. So now one of my business friends today, this morning, we were chatting about our kids, and then we got to this topic, and he said, he's just a great guy, and he said, he's probably 69 years old or something. He has grown daughters, and he said, I was doing something for my charity in Philadelphia last night, and there's 2 journalism students. They're both young women who won this scholarship. I don't know what school it's at. I think it's at University of Pennsylvania. And they all wanted to take a picture with me because he was one of the big benefactors. And he said, as long as I'll put my arm around you, but you have to give me permission, and someone has to record the permission, because now, and he was kind of half joking, but half not. Because he said, I wouldn't travel alone with a woman on business today. He said, half of my firm is women. And I love female employees. They're great. They're the best employees, frankly. He said, but now I wouldn't do it. That's amazing.
Right. Well, there are all kinds of unintended consequences that might wind up harming some of the intended beneficiaries. I mean, it's a pretty, I'm afraid even to say any of this out loud, but just in one sentence, it's pretty common for older people in a business to want to help younger people, male or female. And I have heard older men say, gee whiz, I'd love to really help this person, but I'm afraid of how it might look. Well, who's the loser in that scenario? The young person, in many cases, a woman. And I don't know. I think any time you empower lawyers more and HR professionals. I don't hate all lawyers or HR people, but I'm just saying if in the end the only result is that people who are, very far from the core business mission, who are legalistic, lawyers, if they're the ones who wind up with more power at the end of this, I don't know we can call that a victory. I really don't.
No. There was a question I asked Mitch McConnell last night about this topic of this slush fund and so forth. And James, do you have it? I want Tucker to hear this. Let's listen.
Are you in favor of unmasking the names of those in any type of settlement group over in the House?
Retroactively?
Well, there's a whole bunch of people whose names are unknown, even apparently to the congressman who is in charge of the committee that's supposedly overseeing.
Well, Laura, I think my attitude about that is I want to wait and see what the women of the Senate recommend on that and the other issues we're talking about.
So it could be possible that we'll never learn?
I'm going to wait and see what the women of the Senate recommend on that issue.
Why just the women of the Senate? I mean, isn't everybody?
I think they're in a very good position to take the lead. Some men are involved as well on both sides.
No. I mean, Tucker, take it away, but women...
I can't even wait for your question. That's so moronic that I can't even deal with it. I mean, look, law ought to apply universally to all people, regardless of sex or race. Period. So the idea that one sex gets to make decisions for everybody, that's grotesque. That's, by definition, a perversion of justice. Why would any normal person go along with that? I understand that women are primarily the victims of sex harassment, but that doesn't mean that men are primarily the victims of murder. Should the writing of murder laws against murder be reserved only for men? That's insane. What? That's crazy.
We're talking to Tucker Carlson here on the Laura Ingraham Show. And Tucker, North Korea seems like we're getting perilously close to another military engagement in the Korean Peninsula. China's dispatched some top envoys. That looks like it got nothing accomplished. And now the left is continuing this drumbeat of how important it is to have Republicans step up to remove Trump from office because he's clearly not mentally fit, because he's sending out tweets from these somewhat unsavory people from Britain about Muslim violence against Christians and weighing in on the NBC sexual harassment issue. So he's mentally deficient. He might have dementia, and they need to act using the 25th Amendment. That's
these are the very
wallpaper.
Same people who got us. Yeah, these are the people who got us into the Iraq War. The ones who were calling Trump demented. They're the ones who killed Gaddafi. They're the ones who applaud missile strikes in Syria. All of it counterproductive and undermines American national interests, and they're always for that nonsense. So they are not credible, evaluators of this at all. I would say, totally independent of their judgment or lack of it, that I'm very concerned. I don't trust the White House to make wise decisions about North Korea. I don't. And I think that this kind of brinksmanship requires a kind of fine motor skills that, very few people possess. There's a lot of subtlety here. You could easily see how this spins out of control. The truth is we've lived with a nuclear armed Pakistan for 20 years. And, that's not preferable, but that's what we have. And it is preferable to a land war in South Asia or in Korea. So, let's calm down a little bit. I think the escalation of rhetoric is terrifying. I do think it starts to kind of build on itself, and
right.
It winds up in places where a lot of Americans could die, and I'm totally against that. And I don't.
The Rocket Man stuff is just idiotic. Let's face it. I mean, Rocket Man and then Kim Jong Un is calling him a doddering old man, and you could see that this. I call him the Cabbage Patch president, but that's why I'm not president. See, he looks like a Cabbage Patch doll. But so Kim Jong Un is. He has his own, he has his own mental issues, it seems, and he has to maintain this nationalistic fervor back at home. And you just talk to these Korean War veterans. I like to talk to them about what the Korean War 1952 felt like, and that's all you need to do is talk to them. We don't want to go there.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, there's no upside. Anybody you talk to who's gamed this out has cannot tell you how it's going to end well. So yeah, it's terrifying. It's kind of happening in slow motion. I saw this with the Iraq War, and I'm broadly supportive of the White House's policy objectives, but do I trust Nikki Haley to steer a steady course for our country? Are you joking? No, of course not.
Neoconservative. Yeah. Well, the newest story, of course, is that they're closer than ever to hitting the United States. That's what they claim, including Washington, D.C. But it's kind of like weapons of mass destruction. We're closer to hitting the Washington. The rhetoric keeps. So then Nikki Haley. I felt like I was watching Colin Powell for a moment. It was kind of morphing.
A little bit. I mean, obviously, look, nobody wants the Kim regime to have nuclear weapons or intercontinental ballistic missiles or any of it. It's all like a disaster and upsetting. But let's just start at the end, which is a war with North Korea will kill untold hundreds of thousands. Many of them are allies and the innocent.
And our
There's
military.
no way around that. And so, that's not acceptable, period.
Tucker Carlson, it's always great to have you on. Thank you so much. We love your show, and every once in a while you can give me a few pointers on television. Okay, just
I don't think so. I'm making it up, but thank you, Laura. See you tonight.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Tucker Carlson here on the Laura Ingraham Show. And if you're flying this holiday season, you might want to double check that flight. We'll tell you why when we come back. American Airlines is working to fix a glitch that has left thousands of holiday flights without pilots. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. American Airlines now is saying that 15,000 flights between December 17th and the end of the year could be affected. Guess who's flying on American? Me. Okay, at least I'm coming to your house for the entire time. I actually might even stay home anyway. This whole traveling thing is tedious. We're working diligently to address the issue and expect to avoid cancellations this holiday season. Now, if 15,000 flights are affected, how are they possibly going to fix that without having many more planes in the air if they've double and triple booked planes? Isn't that the worst when you get on a plane and someone says, you're sitting in my seat, and then you both look at your boarding passes and you're in the same seat? I always say, would you like to share? I'm not that big. We can get to know each other better. We can get to know each other better, especially if it's a really handsome man. We'll sit and talk the whole time. I'm not a fun flyer these days. I'm not enjoying it that much.
Were you a fun flyer?
Ever? No, I've never been a fun flyer. By the way, Newsweek, this is a story we're going to hit tonight. Newsweek, the same publication that claimed that I changed my political views in order to support Trump and make money. This was people who obviously didn't read Power to the People in 2007 or follow anything I've said since 1996 in the media. They just wrote that story last week or so. They're saying now that Ivanka has plagiarized her own speech in India because she used lines that she used in Tokyo. You can't plagiarize yourself, morons. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. That's a former NBC employee, James. Who is that? Well, variety writer. Well, I don't doubt that. And I worked at NBC. I worked at MSNBC, and I got to know a lot of the people at NBC when I used to go on the Today Show, and it's a tight group. Everybody knows everything about everyone. I mean, it's like doing a... Well, it is. It's a show every day, but it's like, how a Broadway cast, everyone, it's close. It's tight-knit. You're in a small space, and you're getting your makeup on, you're getting your hair done, you're going in and out of wardrobe, you're doing costume changes when you're doing fun specials, and you go out for office party. I mean, it's a tight-knit group. The idea that Jeff Zucker didn't know about this when he was head of CNN is a joke.
Also, he was on the Today Show. He started in 89 and then became the executive producer in 92.
Zucker.
Yes.
And then he became head of NBC News. Jeff Zucker had an amazing run at NBC. Amazing run. And then he became head, I believe, of NBC Entertainment. After that, then he headed over to NBC had some problems with the ratings, and then he headed over to CNN. And again, I know Jeff Zucker a little bit, to say hi, or he's a big liberal. The idea that these people are claiming they didn't know anything is it's laughable. And they're the ones who are wagging their finger at Donald Trump morning, noon, and night. They're protecting their cash cow, Matt Lauer, for years and years and years. I know people start throwing the Fox News stuff at me, but I can tell you one thing. I worked with Bill O'Reilly for, 6 years, and I never saw one instance of the type of behavior he was charged with. None. Now, was I up in New York? No, I wasn't, but I was there quite a bit, and I'm not an executive, and I didn't see any of that. And I don't put up with. I just don't put up with that stuff. This is lunacy. But I just love. These are the people who are always moralizing about Trump, and now they're calling Trump's mental fitness into question. And I'm going to be hitting this tonight on the Ingraham angle. You do not want to miss it. And a question for all of you today is: do you find yourself surprised by any of this? I'm not even getting into, and I know other shows did this last night, spent a lot of time on it, but I'm not reading the allegations against Matt Lauer. I find them so gross, and I'm not going into detail. I'm not going to read the comments from the women. I'm just not doing that. I know a lot of you have your kids in the car, or you listen to this on podcast maybe, and you have the speakers on. I'm not going to read it. I'm just not doing it. This is the really important issues that we're going to get to on this show today. But does any of this surprise you? They love putting conservatives under the microscope. They loved raking Fox over the coals. They loved every lawsuit filed. They loved it. They loved covering every aspect of it. Okay. All right. But we're supposed to believe you now that you knew nothing about any of it? Nothing? The Variety piece, there was a horrible piece outlining a number of horrific examples of Lauer. And we can say unequivocally that prior to Monday night, current NBC News management was never made aware of any complaints about Matt Lauer's conduct. Current NBC management.
Clearly the reporter thinks differently.
Well, they're talking to a lot of people now. And having complaints filed against you is different from people knowing, he's a pig. And he's in his 50s, and he's trying to bed a 20-year-old. Now, this is nothing new in business. Is nothing. I mean, I've seen examples of individuals who you just know are creeps. You just know it. You see it at restaurants, bars, people coming up to young women at bars that I've been at, and not that I'm going to many bars with my schedule anymore, but you see it. Melissa, you see it. You see it. You're a young woman. People have done this to you. I mean, we just look at them and we start laughing. Like, oh, okay, bye.
I mean, any woman in their 20s or 30s or 40s or whatever, at some point in their life has had
someone hit on you.
Yeah.
Someone hit on you.
Not in the work environment, and to the extent that Matt Lauer is clearly
right. Not everybody, but a lot of women have. If there are a lot of young women around powerful men, and especially where a woman is like she wants to become a journalist or she wants to become an investment banker, and you're working late at night, stuff is happening, and sometimes it's consensual, sometimes it's not, and that's just a fact of life. But don't wag your finger at us. Don't wag your finger at Donald Trump and start to make all these claims about his mental deficiency. What do you think is behind all the mental deficiency claims, by the way, that they're raising right now? Tucker Carlson was on our show earlier, and he said these people have no standing. Many of them are the same people who told us, kill Gaddafi, that'll help the Middle East. Unseat Mubarak, that's going to help solve the Middle East. Fund the good rebels in Syria, that's going to help. The Iraq war invasion, let's do immigration amnesty, that'll help. Let's bring in more dreamers, let's bring in more guest workers. These are the same people who got us into such an economic and foreign policy disaster. And now they're the ones saying Trump's crazy? I think what they've done is crazy. 855-40-LAURA. Do you think they knew or didn't know about someone like a Matt Lauer and others? They canned a CNN producer last night as my show was getting ready to go on the air, a CNN kid I've never heard of, for inappropriate behavior that was not sexual. Again, I don't even know what that means. And meanwhile, incredible news. Not only the stock market hitting 24,000 today, but contrary to what all the leftists have been saying about Trump doesn't want to work with any other countries. Trump's an isolationist. Trump's going to drive all our European allies against him. Listen to this. New York Times had to report this. The U.S. is joining Europe in fighting China's future in the World Trade Organization. Now, I don't think I ever thought I would see this headline that Europe is now waking up. Who led the way on the trade conversation? Donald Trump. He has exposed what China has done. He was polite to them when he was overseas, and I think they had a very cordial and nice time when they were over there. They had the pageantry and all, but that didn't change the fact that China's a big cheat. The United States has filed arguments to the World Trade Organization in a looming dispute over China's future in the international body, which could shape the global trading system for decades to come. Senior U.S. officials said that they filed a brief to the WTO as a third party in a case that China has brought against the European Union. The brief, which was just being made public now, will lay out legal arguments for why China does not deserve the designation of the all-important, and you guys are ahead of the curve, market economy status, which is a distinction that actually entitles it to this preferential economic treatment under the WTO. If you're deemed not to have market economy status, meaning you're a true free market, then you don't get to play in the playpen of the WTO. That's a huge issue. I actually asked President Trump about this, and this is a big, big issue. I asked Bob Lighthizer about this when I interviewed him, the U.S. Trade Representative, and this is a major, major deal. And the fact that we're joining with Europe and its complaint, defending itself against these ridiculous Chinese demands, this is significant.
Countries were embraced by the World Trade Organization, even if they did not abide by its stated principles. Simply put, we have not been treated fairly by the World Trade Organization. We cannot achieve open markets if we do not ensure fair market access.
This is awesome news. And people thought, oh, he's never going to go there. He's never going to really take on China. He's going to cut a deal, and China's going to get the better of us. Looks like Europe is totally on board with this because of what the concern is. 855-40 Laura. Let's go to Bill in Iowa. Bill, welcome.
Thank you. President Trump is doing a great job. He's probably the smartest president we've had in probably 30, 40 years. He knows business. He knows trade. What it is the Democrats are jealous of Donald Trump.
They're saying he's insane. Bill. They are now bringing in psychiatrists day after day after day to deem him early onset dementia. He's lost 2, 3, 4, 5 mental steps. They're playing old tapes of him from 1987, how sharp he was. And now today, he's losing his train of thought and speeches, et cetera, et cetera. Rocket Man. They're putting all these montages together. And then when we get to the situation with North Korea, where we're on the brink of something, they're going to say, got to pull him out. Got to get him out. We could see hundreds of thousands of people dead. And meanwhile, this just broke that it looks like... and it's something we've talked about before. And again, I hate to say it, but you're ahead of the curve. Donald Trump's going to replace Rex Tillerson. He's on his way out the door. And it looks like Mike Pompeo at the CIA is the preferred choice to replace Tillerson, who was never a good fit. He was never supportive of Trump's nominees. He's let these career people infest all of these assistant secretary positions, which are critical for U.S. Foreign policy stability. He was like Captain Kangaroo or something. He looks like Captain Kangaroo. He just didn't work. This whole thing was, he was a CEO of an oil company. So what? Is he supportive of the Trump agenda, and can he do the job? And my sources inside of the State Department, and I have more than 2, have all said this guy does not have a handle on this. This guy is not supportive. And in fact, foreign envoys are more supportive of Trump than Tillerson's people. And have told me so in meetings. How ironic is that? That then you have these foreign ministers' representatives who are in meetings with Rex Tillerson, and he'll never go into a meeting alone with somebody. He always needs like a helper. And Tillerson's people will not be defending President Trump on like a NAFTA type deal. And then the other person will say, well, actually, this is kind of what the president wants to do, and we have to move these discussions along. But he just wanted no part of it. So now, here's my prediction. The New York Times is going to do a major, major hit piece on Mike Pompeo. They're going to try to take him out at his knees, and with the hopes of getting Nikki Haley in their state, who's a neoconservative. You want to talk about, she's about as close to more, I like Nikki Haley as a person, don't get me wrong, and she ended up being supportive of Trump at the RNC, which was good, but I'll never forget that response to the State of the Union message that she gave in 2016, where she took the occasion to criticize Donald Trump instead of Barack Obama. I will never forget that. I have a long memory and stuff like that. That was very revealing. So I don't want Nikki Haley as Secretary of State. Don't want her. God bless her. Don't want her there. I felt like I was watching Colin Powell yesterday. They're talking about, well, we're on the brink, like weapons of mass destruction. You felt like it's the slow roll to war in the Korean Peninsula with Nikki Haley there. I didn't care for that at all. So Rex is out. Taranta Sourpuss Rex. Don't go away.
Rex is in there working hard. He's doing his best. He's doing the best he can.
Is he going to be with you for the duration?
Well, we'll see.
You've heard me go on and on about my favorite game called Say Anything. You sit around the table, you ask a question, and everyone who's playing just starts talking and laughing. Really, it's our go-to game for when we have time with friends and family, especially around the holidays. It's one of those few games that you can actually play casually. There's no stress, no timer, no rush, no complicated rules. It's really amazing when you play. Say Anything is about as relaxing as a game that I can remember ever playing with my kids or with my friends. And now that I think about it, it's best to play Say Anything with a group of all ages. You get to hear so many different perspectives because when a 10-year-old and an 80-year-old answer the same questions, their answers are hilarious. I've learned so much about my own family just playing this game. They're only a few weeks before Christmas, so make sure you give a gift that brings family and friends together. That's Say Anything. You can get it at Target and Toys R Us. Say Anything. Oh, no, she was really pouring it on for that one, right? She's reading the...
There are dramatic readings every day.
The vaunted Daily News. Oh, please.
Growing numbers of Americans.
Growing numbers.
Who are these growing numbers? Are they on the street? How do you quantify that? They're
looking at their portfolio. They're looking at their 401ks, and they're going, thank God Donald Trump's in office.
Right.
Now, these people are just... It's so obvious.
There's a note of desperation in the last act of this that's sort of sad to see. And humorous, if you have the right eyes.
We do have to say that Trump's got to stop tweeting stuff that's not, doesn't help. It's not helpful. It's just not helpful. I asked McConnell about this.
Well, the problem is,
James, you have it. My question about the tweets.
It's not that the president is tweeting. It's that there are times when he doesn't, I think, fully vet the source of the tweet, so people use that against him. In this case, you had a far-right politician in Europe who posted these Muslim videos. Yeah, she's a politician. And it turns out she yelled at some Muslim woman on the street in the UK, which constitutes a hate crime, and she was arrested under such provision. But the videos she posted, which are several years old, show Muslims pushing young teenagers off of rooftops, beating him to death, breaking a statue of the Virgin Mary. And the president just ad hoc posted
But why
these.
is that relevant today necessarily? Not that it's not important, but it's...
Well, but again, we're talking once again about the frame in which the information comes rather than the content of the information. The fact is,
this does happen.
Right. What the videos contain, it does happen. Now, why now? I don't know. But it's sort of like the Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe he shouldn't have said it in front of the code talkers during their ceremony in the Oval Office. But the fact is, Elizabeth Warren did lie. So who offended Indians more? The woman lying, assuming a cultural identity, or the president who brought it up? That's where the things get difficult, I think.
And then it's Dana Bash. Let's play that. This is Dana Bash from CNN yesterday. Let's listen.
He's a conspiracy theorist. There's something about his personality. There's something about his brain that will not let that go. The bad news is that it is still on his mind, and he is still saying this to people in private because it's just his personality.
Not many colleges can claim they're 100% financially independent from both federal and state governments. In fact, I think there's only one college in the entire country that refuses government funding of every kind, not one penny. It's Hillsdale College. Why? Because government money comes with strings, and Hillsdale refuses to have government bureaucrats dictate what and how they must teach or how they run their campus. And everything Hillsdale does, from the financial aid that 97% of its students receive to the completely free online courses it offers you, depends on generous donors who recognize the worth of independence. Remember, financial freedom preserves the integrity and excellence of a Hillsdale liberal arts education, and attracting the nation's brightest students scores a field of music, study, to biology, to business. Hillsdale College teaches their students to pursue truth and defend liberty. So learn more about how Hillsdale helps all of us become better, more independent citizens, and how you can help Hillsdale further freedom at lauraforhillsdale.com. Joe Scarborough is himself unhinged. He has been infected with an anti-Trump fervor ever since basically Trump exposed him and Mika before they were, I think, ready to announce their big relationship on air. I don't know. I think Trump exposed a lot of people. Their bias, their faulty theories, their poorly conceived prognostication abilities, their real allegiance, their real alliances. And whether it's Jeff Flake or John McCain or Joe Scarborough or Bill Kristol, he's exposed a lot of people. And I think it's really helpful that we now know where everybody stands. So Joe Scarborough apparently believes, or says he believes, that Donald Trump is mentally unstable and believes we should enter into a period of constitutional crisis in order to remove him from office as the stock market's hitting an all-time high. Europe is working with us to take on China on the trade front now, something people never predicted would happen. And I've just started reciting some of the good news. Joining us now, Governor Mike Huckabee. Of course, we love his new show, Huckabee, on TBN, Saturday and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. It premiered on October 7th, by the way. And he's just one of our favorites, and we love him. Governor, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Well, with a setup like that, Laura, I couldn't be better. Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Governor Huckabee, thanks for stopping by, and I have to get your take on this. I mean, we'll get to how they treat your daughter in a moment, but let's talk about this new narrative that they're pushing. I want to make sure we hear you because you were a little muffled before. But the narrative that Trump is mentally unstable and that he is suffering perhaps from early onset dementia. I asked Mitch McConnell about this last night. He said it was outrageous and baseless, and he talks to the president every day, and there's nothing could be further from the truth. But what's your take on why this is happening?
Well, I've said for a long time, Laura, I think that Donald Trump's critics are not so much afraid that he will fail. I think they're afraid he will succeed. And if he succeeds, he not only disrupts the Washington insider game that needs to be disrupted, but it also proves that how wrong they were. Look at the guys like Joe Scarborough, Bill Kristol, Jeff Flake, John McCain. They want him to be wrong because then they can look right. They can look like they were geniuses. But that's not the way it's working out. I mean, the stock market's at record highs. We've got unemployment at the lowest in 17 years. The GDP is exceeding expectations. We actually have ISIS in a lock. And North Korea, threats that they may bring, they have to be worried that Donald Trump is not going to be like the previous presidents and just look the other way.
Well, I think that the more successful the president is on the economic front, the more desperate the Democrats become, because they know that in the end, people vote their pocketbooks. With consumer confidence rising, with wages even going up in manufacturing, more money will be repatriated back to the United States once tax reform gets through, and I think it will get through. Then what do they? Then they just keep doing identity politics and try to win in 2018 and 2020. I mean, it's just that's a fool's errand.
Well, what else have they got? I mean, this is blown back up in their faces because their attempts to say that Donald Trump was irrational, that he's unhinged, let me give you a personal example. My daughter walks into the Oval Office repeatedly every day. I think that if he were truly just completely unhinged, she would have called me at some point and said, "Dad, I got to get out of here." But that's not what's it like there at all. I know most of the people in the West Wing, John Kelly and many of the people who are there. These are good people. These aren't crazy people. And these are not people who would just sit back and say, "Gee, I'm in the White House. I don't care what happens." They love their country more than they love anything. I just think, and I've known Joe Scarborough a long time. I'm real disappointed in him. But what I'm seeing happen is, Laura, a lot of these people got their feelings hurt because he called them names or he tweeted something nasty about them. Look, this is a grown-up business. Politics is a brutal contact sport. And I kind of get that. So, I think a lot of people, whether it's people from the campaign who got called nicknames and they just didn't get over it, or whether it's people who are used to having folks lick their boots, Donald Trump just does. That's not his style. And so instead, they're just going after him on a personal level, and I find it very disappointing, and especially, let me pick out John McCain. With great respect, we all supported John McCain in 2008 because he was the nominee of the party, and he won fair and square. I came in second to McCain in 2008. I sucked it up, and I went out there and campaigned for him vigorously because that's what you do when your choices are Barack Obama or John McCain. But I'm disappointed that whether it's McCain or the Bush family, they can't get over their personal feelings. And to go out and say, well, we voted for Hillary, or we just didn't even vote, it's not a betrayal of Donald Trump. It's a betrayal of all of the Republican voters who had to suck up a lot of things they didn't like about maybe the Bush candidates or John McCain, but they did it because that's the choice we had.
We're talking to Governor Mike Huckabee here on the Laura Ingraham Show. I interviewed Senator McConnell last night in an exclusive right after he got off the Senate floor as they began to launch into the real tax reform debate. And I stepped into the issue with him of Roy Moore. And he said, look, the people of Alabama are going to decide what they want to do. But then we moved on to what might happen if he wins. Let's listen.
They're going to make the decision in Alabama, and we'll.
So should you in the Senate then invalidate that by expelling him out?
We'll deal with the
two-thirds
aftermath.
vote?
We'll deal with the aftermath of the decision the people of Alabama make on December 12th.
So you think it's a possibility he could be expelled from the Senate?
I think there's a possibility he will have an ethics issue.
An ethics investigation once he gets here?
Yeah, I think it's almost certain, yeah.
How far back will those allegations? They go back like almost 4 decades.
It'll be up to the committee.
What do you make of that? I mean, on the one hand, he said the people of Alabama will decide, and then the Senate would then perhaps try to invalidate the election results in Alabama. I mean, how does that work?
I don't know, Laura. And here's, I guess, what I just don't understand. Why didn't the Senate ever do anything about Ted Kennedy? What was that about? How did the Senate not take on some of its own members? Why does it not expel Al Franken? I mean, I know they say, well, he's going to go to the Ethics Committee. Let's just wait and see. There were other senators, some I'm not going to name their names, you and I both know who they are, that are widely known in Washington to have been, let's just say, less than stellar in their personal activities. And I don't recall that they're under that kind of scrutiny. Now, I'm going to be quick to say that if Roy Moore did the things that he is accused of,
well, that's obvious. He shouldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, everyone has a right to due process, a right to face their accusers, and a right of the presumption of innocence until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not like he's confessed something like Al Franken or that you have photographic evidence. There's the difference.
Well, I find it very troubling when, and I didn't endorse Roy Moore, I endorsed Mo Brooks, but I find it very troubling that the U.S. Senate would begin an ethics investigation into an individual on accusations as horrific as the one about the 14-year-old girl is. Believe me, it makes me sick. when it's 39 years ago and there is no such thing as due process? I mean, what do you do? I guess everyone can take lie detector tests. I mean, to me, we're going down a path that is a difficult one, for sure.
Yeah, but here's what I would hope for, and you're an attorney, so you can speak to this, but the best thing that ever happened to me several years ago when I was falsely accused of misusing money at the governor's mansion was that I got sued. You know why that was a wonderful thing? Because then everybody had to be deposed under oath with penalty of perjury. The result was the case not only got thrown out with prejudice, but the people who filed it had to openly admit and sign a document saying there was zero basis for it, that there was no indication of all, and the person who made the original accusation attempted to take the Fifth Amendment to keep from incriminating herself, and the whole thing vaporized. So here's what I hope. I hope that either Roy Moore sues those women or those women sue Roy Moore. And the reason I say that is because only then will people be under oath with the penalty of perjury and have to tell what they know with absolute certainty. Now, people can lie under oath. We know Bill Clinton did. Mm-hmm. But at least it gives us a little better hope to find out what the truth is.
This was something that was said on Morning Joe. Again, I hate to keep harping on this, but they do represent the elite mindset in the United States, the New Yorker crowd. Go to Morning Joe 2, James. And it was about, of course, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Let's listen.
The official spokesperson for the White House to come out, they stood their ground and, in fact, dug in even deeper on this white supremacist video and the support for it.
Yeah, and, you know, we've seen Sarah Huckabee Sanders do things like this before, but this is particularly, I mean, this is spin at a whole new level.
It's like she went to the Baghdad Bob School of School of Communications on this one. She graduated like top of her class.
Baghdad Bob School of Journalism.
Well, you said it earlier when you, I think, said that the Morning Joe crew has become unhinged, and that's the best you can say. They are so angry, they're so bitter, they're so bewildered by the fact that there are people out in the country who don't think like they do. They cannot understand it because they sit around that little table in New York, they go to the same society events, they congratulate each other on how smart they are, how much better they are than the rest of the country, and they're just appalled that there are people who drive pickup trucks, shoot guns and hunt deer and listen to country music, and they just cannot believe that us backwater deplorables don't get it. Well, the truth is, they're the ones who I don't think often get it. But the insults they hurl at my daughter, quite frankly, she is more than capable of handling it, and she doesn't, take it personally, and she just understands that it's Donald Trump they hate more than they hate her, but it's not pleasant to watch or listen to. But I think they do more to discredit themselves than they do to discredit people like my daughter who, listen, from what I hear traveling around the country, to many people, she's like a rock star who stands, looks right in their faces, and just pushes back, but does it, with grace and charm, but doesn't take anything off these guys.
No, I completely agree. I think she's doing a great job, and it's not easy facing the sharks every day. Governor Mike Huckabee, it's always great to have you. Oh, one more question. One more really important question, because I know you're like I am. You love the holidays stuff. Did she really make that pie?
She really made that pie. Laura, it's one she's been making for years. She makes it at all the great family events. It's a wonderful pie, and she bought the ingredients, and she's going to make several of them and serve them in the White House briefing room. And I guess if they don't eat it, they can stick their face in it. I have no idea, but I think it would be funny because it's a great pie. I'm telling you. So let me tell you this, Laura: never, ever, ever accuse a Southern woman of bringing a store-bought pie to a family event. Don't ever do that.
I love it. Okay, this is the pie gate, whether Sarah Huckabee Sanders actually made the pie she tweeted about. This is how pathetic these people are. Governor Huckabee, we love you. Thank you so much for joining us. We love your show on TBN Saturdays and Sundays, 8 p.m. Huckabee, don't go away. Donald Trump tweeting today after the market hit an all-time high.
The Dow just broke 24,000 for the first time, another all-time record. If the Dems had won the presidential election, the market would have been down 50% from these levels, and consumer confidence, which is also at an all-time high, would be low and glum.
He's right about that. And he gets no credit, for sure. Gets no credit about it. It's just the way it's going to be. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. United States, 57% of kids are on track for obesity by age 35. A new study. You know what I say? That's it? That's all? Just 57%? I mean, just look around you. Kids are on their screens, they're not exercising, they're eating junk, sugar, processed foods, and they're piling on the LBs, and they're all going to get adult onset diabetes. And it's going to be a killer for the healthcare system. You got to get your kids away from those screens, my friend. Get them outside doing something. Push a broom.